So, three things you'll notice. One, I missed my date on Wednesday, and that was because it was my birthday, as some of you did wish me happy birthday, and I thank you, those few that did. Um, was not in video making mood, and so I pushed it off until now, until Saturday. Two, you shall notice that I'm not sick anymore, which is awesome. I got some good old fashioned antibiotics on that Friday that I filmed that video, and after that started to heal up pretty good. And three, my clippy thing broke. And so now I'm forced to hold my mic, really hindering my hand talking prowess. But what can you do? When clippy things break, they break. So this week, this bye week, I thought I'd talk about what's going on in the world and the motives behind things. You know, you hear, then you read about all the atrocities that have happened in Libya, and not not taking anything away from that. There have been some horrible things that have happened. These called airstrikes on protesters, whether or not they were peaceful. Um, but horrible, horrible human rights violations, and oh, it's going to turn into a civil war soon. What's really interesting is how quickly the West has jumped in. You know, whoa, we might order a no-fly zone. Or we might intervene. You know, we might have to intervene. And the few people that think that all this intervening is because of human rights violations, it's absolutely not. If you think that any intervention in Libya would be about human rights, you're crazy. I'm sorry, but you're crazy. Um, the same shit's going on in Ivory Coast right now. Ivory Coast, in fact, has already descended into civil war. They're not on the verge of civil war like Libya is. Um, we're not doing anything about it. Do you even hear about it? Did you even know that until I said it right now? No. And the reason is because Libya has something under its sand that the Ivory Coast doesn't, and that's oil. Libya's economy is built up on oil, and because of this circumstance in Libya, the oil prices are going up, and that's why you hear about it. Why do you hear about Somalian pirates? Well, that's because if oil rigs start feeling that it's completely unsafe for them to go through uh, the waters outside Somalia and go through the Suez Canal, then they're going to start going around Africa. And if they go around Africa, then the oil prices will go up even higher. And that's why you read about that. That's why you hear about that. Meanwhile, shit's going on in Tunisia, 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 the little country north of Libya. You don't hear about things like that going on. Not very much. There's a lot of atrocities going on there. You know, you don't hear about the shit in Ivory Coast. Um, but yeah, all of a sudden something happens in Libya, and the West is flexing its muscles for human rights. No, the West is flexing its muscles for oil. Let's be honest here. And if you want further proof that the West has no intentions of saving innocent people, watch Shake Hands with the Devil. That's that's a movie. For those of you who know about the Rwandan crisis, you may have seen Hotel Rwanda. Uh, for those of you who have seen Hotel Rwanda, the Canadian general, the guy that always comes into the hotel and he's the UN, and he's pretty useless in that movie. Um, they don't portray him very well. If you watch Shake Hands with the Devil, that's his story. He's a French Canadian. He's in charge of all the operations in the UN. And I'm not saying, and I'm not, I'm just saying he's Canadian because he is Canadian. I'm not by any means defending my country's involvement in Hotel Rwanda. I'm just saying that this man, this Canadian general, he was trying to do his job, and the UN wouldn't let him. There were a lot of opportunities that he had where he could have made a difference and stopped a lot of the killing. For those of you who don't know, the Rwandan genocide was 800,000 Tutsis being killed by Hutu extremists, and also Hutu moderates, or people that stood up for Tutsi rights, were also killed in that 800,000. This was all over 100 days, so that's 8,000 people a day were slaughtered. Um, but the big thing is that the West went in with the United Nations and this Canadian general in charge of all these troops, and he had a number of opportunities to make a difference, and he was ready. The biggest example that's come to the top of my head right now is the weapons caches that these Hutu extremists, militia groups, the Interahamwe, they had these 5 weapon caches all over this capital city in Rwanda. And those weapons are the weapons, the machetes, the guns that they used to slaughter these 800,000 people. He had the manpower, this Canadian general had the manpower, and Belgians, they had some, well, they obviously had some Canadian troops. They had Belgians, they had a bit of French forces, I believe, and they had forces from Ghana. And they had the manpower to strike 3 of these 5. 60% of the weapons they could have taken out. Um, right when they were about to, call came in. The facts came in where the order was, you're not to act. You're not peacemakers, you're peacekeepers. Second big instance is when they were protecting the Hutu moderate prime minister. They had a force of, I think it was 20 men. There's 20 men in the movie. Again, you have to understand that it is Hollywood, but at the same time, if you watch the actual documentary, which is the actual general, um, because the movie is based on the book that the general wrote afterwards. And if you watch the documentary, it's actually his return to Rwanda 10 years later. So in 2004, I believe. The crisis, of course, started in 1993. But a lot of what goes on in Shake Hands with the Devil is very much reality and how it went down. And so it's very disturbing. It's very disturbing. If you think that the West is some sort of savior of human rights and protect the innocent, attack the guilty, it's just not. That's not how the world works. You know, you gotta you gotta sit back and you gotta realize you're looking at things on the news that your government wants you to look at on the news. The reason you haven't heard about Ivory Coast is because if you hear about Ivory Coast, you'll want your government to do something about it. And the government doesn't want you to want them to do something about it. And so all you hear about is Libya and how we're almost going to liberate Libya, and it's only because of oil. Just throwing that out there. But that's all for now. I shall talk to you and see you guys later. Well, I won't, no, I'll see the camera, but I'll talk to you later.